Chapter 6. Thrillings in a Hotel. We tried to find out what had happened in the hotel before he went hiking, Jacob said, sitting across the table of Varshi. He stayed in room 4 of the 6th floor. The hotel did not have surveillance cameras on each floor, but we were able to obtain the list of clients staying on that floor that morning. We did a contact tracing and were fortunate to obtain some relevant information. He paused, leaning back to organize his thoughts before he continued. Folk was taking an elevator back to his hotel room. Besides him, 2 men and a mom with 2 kids were in the elevator, and all of them were heading to the 6th floor. Folk wore a mask, so did the other 2 men, who also wore hats. The kids were playing video games on their cell phones. Then the older kid, about 11 years old, felt funny about the dressing of the 3 men and secretly took videos of them. After they checked out from the hotel, the family never learned the news about Folk's disappearance, and the kid had forgotten about the video until we contacted them. Did the video reveal what happened that morning? Varshi asked with great curiosity. Jacobs nodded. It gave us relevant information. When Folk exited the elevator, the 2 men stepped forward greeting him. Hi, Dr. Shi. Hi, how are you doing? Folk replied for politeness. Fine, thanks. We have something to show you and would like to talk to you, the taller man said. The 2 men stepped sideways, each holding a pen. Folk was sandwiched between them. The taller man of the 2 unfolded a white slip in his hand and extended its arm so that Folk could see it. When Folk saw the characters printed on the slip, his face turned ashen. The men pushed the buttons of their pens, which exposed shiny sharp points glittering under the light, and Folk shuddered upon seeing them. It seemed that it was clear to Folk what they wanted. He did not resist and walked toward his room, escorted by the 2 men. He unlocked the door and all 3 of them entered. About 30 minutes later they left the hotel, as shown in the surveillance camera at the lobby. What was printed on the slip? We zoomed in the video. The characters were fuzzy, but we could recognize them as H-A-R-O-L. Harold. Varshi exclaimed. Yes. There might be 1 or more characters we couldn't see from the video. So actually, there's a conspiracy between the detective Harold and Folk. That was what we thought when we first saw those characters. We worked with the FBI to carry out a detailed investigation on him, including wiretapping his conversations. We conclude that Harold had no connection with Folk. It was just a coincidence that the 5 letters on the slip were the same as those of his name. So you still do not know what those characters represent? Right. Frankly speaking, we are often confused whenever we deal with anything related to Strong Nation. She frowned. Yeah. They view the world differently, many of their perceptions based on imaginations. They thought they could use lies to replace facts. Jacob sighed. It is indeed weird that they could have such views. Recently I did more study on the nation, and began to understand why they have such weird hypocritic behavior. Let me first tell a story. Varshi felt awkward that he would tell another story. Standing up and walking toward the window, he said, some years ago, in Strong Nation laid a river, and by the river, a small village. The son of a high-ranked official worked as a peasant in the village, as every youngster in a city was sent to a village for re-education in those days. His main job was feeding pigs, and he made a name in his work. He could shoulder 2 buckets of pig food for a mile without changing shoulder, and he was regarded by the villagers as a genius of growing pigs. He lived with pigs, dreamed of pigs, and learned how to make the sound oink of pigs. All pigs under him, black or white, small or big, were well disciplined. He knew when to feed a pig and when to restrict food to discipline it. No pigs dared to disobey his order. He could make oink sound the same as that made by a hog. He once made an impressive demonstration to journalists. A row of pigs were standing in front of a food trench. While he was pouring food into the trench, no pigs made any movements. Then suddenly, he made a great cry, loud as thunder, oink. All pigs swiftly bent their heads and started to eat. When the food was more or less gone, he cried loudly again, oink, oink. All pigs immediately stopped eating. His pig controlling techniques rivaled today's autonomous systems. He hired village boys as surveillance tools for his pigs. Whichever pig was found behaving abnormally would be singled out, and he would torture it, sometimes beating it to death. In his pig farm, everything was in proclaimed order, and all pigs grew fat, some obese, and big, awaiting for slaughter. He had become a legend in governing pigs. Villagers, near and far, came to learn from him, and some offered their daughters to marry him. The word oink had become sacred to him. He uttered oink in his work, and in his dream. When he cried oink and the pigs followed orders, he was profoundly enlightened, his eyes enlarged. He uttered oink and learned to fight and struggle, and knew about the indestructibility of life. He heard the voice speaking in his heart, discipline your pigs. Stay with them. Control them. If he continued to work on feeding pigs, he could be a hero, adored by his countrymen. Unfortunately, he entered politics. By fate or by devil's arrangement, with an abundance of luck, he became the national leader of the country. In his life, all he knew was how to govern pigs that he was good at. Sadly, he governs humans in the same way he governs pigs, and has brought uncountable disasters, devastations, and tragedies, one after the other incessantly, horrible and extremely sad. Varshi listened intently. I feel sorry for his countrymen. When you are governed as a pig, your thoughts will be twisted and distorted. Your thinking will be abnormal, and you don't know exactly how others think, and how to react to normal events. The converse is also true. Normal people don't know how they think. For many times, the world has underestimated the stupidity of this pig farmer. So we might have overlooked folks' behavior. Only when we understand folks' environment could we figure out what has happened. Varshi said. Jacobs nodded. Exactly. Folk could be a paranoid fond of hiking or simply a regular scientist, but he could as well be a dangerous spy who could do fatal damages to this country. At this moment, we don't know which direction we should go. We have no clues what the 5 letters represent. Now it is clear that Folk was kidnapped. Why did he cooperate with the kidnappers to cover up their criminal activities? The kidnappers might have something in hand to coerce Folk to do so. The 5 letters are the key to the secret they hold. I agree. Also, why did they put Folk in custody for 2 weeks? They did not need such a long time to negotiate. Is it possible that they were waiting for Folk to request someone inside Strong Nation to send the materials that they want? I suddenly have bold speculation. You mentioned to me before there might exist an invisible force that has been helping America furtively to escape the fate of being conquered by Strong Nation. Folk could have some malicious purposes concerning national security. This organization discovered his goals and tried to stop him. Jacob sighed. Your speculation might be too bold. This invisible organization has never been proven to exist. It might simply be not real, as we have been tantalized by the possibility of its existence for years. It is somewhat akin to searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. If it exists and has carried out significant activities, it should have a communication network. Cooperating with the FBI, we have used the latest AI technologies to analyze the big data of the internet, telephone, Wi-Fi signals, and auto traffic, but could find no trace of such an organization. In addition, recently we also send agents to traffic stations of big cities, including railway and bus stations, to monitor any suspicious activities and communications, but again no evidence could be found. This organization may be simply an imagination. Events just happen by coincidence, and our country is just lucky enough to escape the dark fate. She suddenly came up with an idea and spoke excitedly. What if this organization does not use modern tools like Wi-Fi to communicate? Jacobs laughed. If it doesn't, then it is something irrelevant, and we don't need to care about its existence. Varshi leaned back on her chair and thought deeply again. She smiled. Our situation is like the development of theoretical physics. New theories pop up to explain unexpected data. When in the early 20th century, they discovered that galaxy clusters contain a lot more mass than all visible matter combined, they added dark matter in their theories to explain the experimental data. When they find that the universe expands faster and faster, they claim that it's attributed to dark energy. But after years of hunting, they could never confirm the existence of dark matter and dark energy. Maybe they never exist, as in the 19th century scientists explored whether outer space is filled with an invisible matter called ether. The argument for ether's existence lasted for many years until the verification of Einstein's relativity theory, which assumes that ether never exists. She sat up and continued, most likely, this invisible force helping America does not exist. However, if someone deflects in the coming weeks or months regarding this matter, it could be a minute indirect evidence of its existence. Of course, the deflection could also be a coincidence, but that could encourage you and the FBI to continue to spend resources to hunt for it. Jacobs nodded. True. Indeed, there had been too many coincidences already. We'll see. After Jacobs had left, she lost in thinking on her chair. Then she thought of Isaac. She rushed home to ask Diego for the remaining story of the adventures of Isaac and Jade,